Hello, good morning students. Welcome. Here Sonu sir with a new video class 8 SST history. And students, we have chapter 4 colonialism and tribal societies. And in that we have been read up to page 47 the Munda rebellion. And in that we see Birsa Munda who was the leader of that rebellion. So after exploitation of British army, so some tribe of Chotanagpur like hosts of Kolizin and Mundas collaborated themselves and fought against British. So, in previous video students I have given a homework that you have to find out that where is Chotanagpur plateau in your India's map, and you see this Chotanagpur plateau is near deep side of Nepal and outside of Assam, near about Bangladesh and Bengal. So this is Chotanagpur plateau. So you have to see further in your map. So students, we have been read about Birsa Munda and Munda rebellion, and he also, as we know, he imprisoned in that rebellion. But after his release, so students, I am starting from page number 48. So after his release, 2 years later, Birsa gathered his tribe again and asked them to drive out the depots. So firstly, British suppressed the Munda rebellions, but Birsa Munda's release started and gathered his tribe again and asked them to drive out the depots and the outsider to make them out. So although they were unsuccessful, the Munda rebellions resulted in the implementation of new laws by the British, according to which tribal lands could not be easily taken over by zamindars and moneylenders. So although Munda rebellions was not successful, but from there British forced to make laws, new laws, and change the laws, and they changed laws that the moneylenders cannot take the lands of peasants and farmers, and the zamindars also cannot cannot capture and cannot the lands of farmers. So this was implementation of law according to Munda rebellions and revolt of Mundas. And also the Chotanagpur Tenancy Act was passed in 1908, which banned forced labor in the tribal areas. So it is very important thing, student. Chotanagpur Tenancy Act, and in that this act provides, it was passed in year 1908, and this act provides that the forced labor and the doing of forced laborers of Chotanagpur plateaus areas and that tribal people was banned from that day, and it was something good news for the people of tribes. So students, after Munda rebellion we are going to start the Bastar rebellion. So Bastar, students, is in Odisha. So students, tribes inhabiting, Bastar is in Chhattisgarh. Students, Bastar is in Chhattisgarh. So the tribes inhabiting the Bastar region, Chhattisgarh, were subjected to large-scale exploitation for a long time by the British zamindars and moneylenders. So Bastar rebellion, the Bastar tribe also who belonged from Chhattisgarh was in hand of exploitation of British, and to refuse that exploitation they started rebellion, and they were forced to pay high taxes, were used as free labor, and were forced to provide free goods to British officials. So they were forced to pay high taxes, they were forced to do labor work, and they were forced to do they had to provide free goods for British. So in 1899 and 1907, in spite of the famine, the tribals had to pay taxes, and it was famine from year 1899 to 1907. This is famine year. Friends, we have to remind this thing. So in the time of famine, that tribe people, that Bastars had to pay taxes, 1/3 part of their produce. So it was very high exploitation, and if we see in 1905, two-thirds of the forest areas were declared to be reserve forest, and when they were not able to pay their taxes, they had to give up their forest area. And by this series, two-thirds to a one-third part of forest area was covered as reserve forest of British. So this led high tension investors, and what happens then, the tribals had to pay taxes, and in 1905 almost two-thirds of the forest area were declared to be reserve forest areas, unable to bear the exploitation and any further. The tribes revolted in 1910, led by Gunda Dhur. Investor rebellion, this is Gunda Dhur as leader of Investor rebellion. So the British suppressed the rebellion but agreed to reduce the areas of reserve forest. So this rebellion was also suppressed, but by only this rebellion, British agreed to decrease forest reserve. Okay, and means reserve forest that they captured as a name of reserve forest, they decreased that area. And our next topic, students, tribal revolts in the northeast. Students, today we are going to discuss the main part and main tribes of our northeast like Khasi, Garo, Jaintia and others, and what their prevalent roles like in this area, in Meghalaya, Assam. So these tribes were used to live there, and what the revolts were there we are going to discuss. So northeast India is an abode of different tribes such as Khasis, Garos, Jaintias and Nagas. So these Khasis, Garos and Jaintias and Nagas were tribes and are tribes of northeast India. And what are the Khasis, and we will talk about Khasis. Khasis resided in the hilly regions between the Garo and Jaintia. So students, if you see in Meghalaya and Assam in your map, so these two Khasi, Garo and Jaintia is simultaneously here equated, and if you see this is Khasi, Garo and Jaintia, and after that Naga. So in a series, in a line, these all hilly areas are located, and Khasis were in between Garo and Jaintia. So this is Garo and Jaintia, in between Khasis were there. So the British proposed to construct a road which would pass through this their regime to connect the Brahmaputra Valley and the Sumatra. So this is Brahmaputra River coming from China, and after passing the coast comes in India, in Assam and this whole part. And there is different river, there is different valleys. So in those parts, in between two valleys, British wanted to make a road. The Khasis did not welcome this idea. So because by this road, the connection of outsiders will be increased. So that is why Khasis rejected this idea or refused or opposed this idea. And then what happens? They feared that the British would capture their lands and rule them. Hence they decided to drive out the British from their regime. So this road was not, in favor of Khasis. So they opposed this idea and rebelled against British. In May 1829, the Khasis revolted against the British led by U. Bor Manik and U. Tirot Singh. So these two names are there, U. Bor Manik and U. Tirot Singh. So in the leadership of them, Khasis revolted against British. The revolt ended with the surrender of Tirot Singh. And after the suppression of British, surrender of Tirot Singh was there, and the suppression of the revolt ended. So after that, we are talking about the Nagas. Right? So students, page number 5049, Nagas. The Nagas comprise different tribes such as the Angami, Sema, Lotha and Jemi, who were known for their raiding skill. What is raiding skill, student? The skill of rapid surprise attack on someone or something. So like guerrilla attack. So Nagas were in, in comparison and in series and in group of some tribes like Angami, Sema, Lotha and Zeme. These all tribes are known as for raiding skill. So to raid somewhere or to attack on somewhere in rapid action rapid time. So this skill was in these all tribes like Nagas, Angami, Sema, Lotha and Zeme. They lived in the region between Assam and Burma. So through Assam and through Myanmar and Burma, they lived there. In 1820, Assam came under the control of British. So in 1820, Assam came under control of the British, and they wanted to prevent the Nagas from raiding the plains. So British started to prevent Nagas raids, and then what happens? The Nagas revolted against these in 1849. They were later suppressed by the British in 1850. So this was exploitation in the eyes of Nagas, and they opposed and get rebelled for that, and they revolted in 1849, but they were suppressed in 1851. So 2 years revolutions of them was there, but in 1851 they suppressed. After that, students, here we see the Kukis. The Kuki tribe lived in the Lusai hill ranges of Manipur and Tripura. So in the Lusai hill ranges of Manipur and Tripura, this Kuki tribe lived, and they developed an anti-British outlook because of the unjust agricultural and cheap labor policies of the British. So British gave cheap or less money to the laborers, and those agricultural policies, and it was totally unjust, and by that they developed anti-British outlook. So they developed an anti-British outlook, and they revolted. So also they were forbidden from practicing jhum cultivation and were denied any payment for manual labor. So they were denied for manual labor payment, and they were what would be the exact payment and what would be the exact range of payment was not given that time. This was an exploitation, and after that we see the labor policies, or the practicing of jhum cultivation was also prohibited. So jhum cultivation, as we know, shifting cultivation. So it is very easy to shift our cultivation from this land to that land. By then we can use more fertile land and produce more and more crops. So that is why jhum cultivation was there, but jhum cultivation was also banned and prohibited by British. So this was the exact reason by that Kukis also revolted. And then what happened? They revolted against the British in 1829. 1844 and 1849. In these different years they revolted. Between 1917 and 1919 also there was another Kuki uprising under Rani Gaidin Liu, who convinced her people not to pay taxes to the British. She was arrested in 1932, which put an end to the revolt. So from 1829 to 1932, this revolt was up to 100 years, and in this if we see prominent name, there was Rani Gaidin Liu, who was a prominent ruler, and she refused her people not to pay taxes, and by that British arrested her in 1932, which put an end to this revolt. So Kuki revolt was also very prominent, people of Manipur and Tripura. And we see other popular movements in the northeast. Some other popular movements in the northeast under the British rule were the revolt of Mismis in 1836, the Khamti rebellion in Assam between 1839 and 1844, and the Lusais revolt in 1842 and 1844. The revolt of the Sintins of Jaintia Hills during 1860 and 1862, the revolt of Saflas during 1872 and 1873, the uprising of Kacha Nagas of Kachar in 1882, and women's war in Manipur in 1904. So these 7 northeast states having these all tribes. So students, in homework you have to make a table, and in that you have to mention tribes, characteristics of their people, area and region and hills of their people. And if we see revolts in other parts of India, so students, we concluded northeast revolts, and we have to conclude now other parts of India. So students, in today's topic we concluded all northeast revolutions and revolts against British, and it was also in tribal revolts, and we talked about Khasi, Garo, Jayantiyas and Nagas and other tribes, and we have been talked about Angami, Sema, Lotha and Jeme, tribes like Nagas who are famous for their reading skills. So students, we concluded this in this video. In next video we will read revolts in other parts of India, the revolt of the Naikadas, the revolt of the Koya and Konda tribes, and the Bhil revolt. So in next video we will conclude our chapter number 4. Okay students, till then have a nice day. Thank you.